What is up, guys? I'm Kyle at Fortune. Today we're talking about some issues we've been having with our budget air tank and some pretty cool upgrades we're going to install. Oh. A while back, we ended up putting together this sweet DIY air tank setup, mostly to air up our tires, but also to use for other things on the trail, like running tools and maybe just even running like an air gun or something, just clean stuff off. This air tank has just been doing awesome, and really the big thing about it was the budget. We were able to build this whole system for $250 or less was the goal. The biggest part of that purchase is the tank itself, but after that, you can get the rest of these parts for pretty cheap. It's just the regulator, a coupler, and one adapter. We were comparing this against the price of a power tank. Now, power tank comes with a ton of cool stuff, plus it looks really cool, whereas you can see this is a pretty basic setup. The first problem we had with our setup after a ton of use was actually way back when we were driving the Suburban. We took it out to Prairie City and we were checking it out in the rocks and making sure everything with our hydraulic assist was working right. We ended up blowing a seal in our steering box and had to head back to the staging area, get the tires aired up, and get us down to where we could get a tow truck to get us out of there. Well, when we went to go air it up, we had a huge problem. I opened the valve on the tank very slowly. I already had my hose connected and I was getting ready to air up the tires when the hose just exploded at one of the connections. And this wasn't a really cheap hose. It was good, over 300 PSI, and this regulator is supposed to be putting out only 150 PSI. So I figured the regulator had failed and it was time to replace it. It was just kind of a fluke. I got a bad one, or maybe it was sitting for too long. I don't know. The issue I had there is that when the hose basically got destroyed, it sent a couple pieces flying and they hit the Suburban. Now, luckily the Suburban isn't a nice truck. It took a dent and I wasn't that worried about it, but what if it would have hit somebody else's truck? Or even worse, what if it would have hit me, especially in the eye or something? That could have been very serious. I let the manufacturer know on Amazon and then continued to use it. I ordered another one. We installed that second one and we probably used it for about a few years. I mean, we really used it for a long time without any issue. Fast forward to the end of this, and what happened is I loaned it out to one of my friends so he could air up a tire on a motorcycle, which he had no other way to air up at the time. And I showed him how to use it. Very simple. You make sure everything's connected, open the valve very slowly, and you're done. Well, when he went to go use it, the hose once again exploded. And once again, it wasn't a cheap hose. It was a good one that I had supplied him. And this time when it blew up, it actually hit his toe and chopped off about half of the nail and injured him. And I said, I'm through with this regulator. At this point, it's just dangerous. Obviously, it's letting too much air through, and the regulator is supposed to be preset at 150 PSI. The hose is good for 300, so obviously this regulator has failed. Its one job is to regulate the amount of pressure that's going through, and it's not doing that. So I got a hold of the company, left a review on Amazon. Hopefully that's going to save other people from going through that, because at this point it is, I believe, a dangerous piece to have with your air tank. Now, we had a giveaway where I set somebody up with one of these, plus all the people that might have used the Amazon associate link that I put in the description. If you have this, please do not use it any longer. I don't know if anyone else has experienced any of those failures yet, but it's something that I did, and I definitely want to make sure everyone's staying safe out there. So besides the regulator causing the hose to blow up and dent trucks and hurt people, some of the other issues we've had with this one are, one, as you can see, there's no gauge on this thing, so we really just have no idea how much pressure it's putting out from the tank itself or from the regulator to verify it's at 150 PSI. So that is an issue right there. You can see this attachment right here is kind of marred up. We've had some issues with it leaking out right here on both of the regulators we've had. And the last part, which I knew was going to happen, is that this thing freezes up really bad. So after you've used it for a while, the hose gets frozen and this whole regulator gets frozen. Not a huge deal, but if you use a hard rubber hose like me, not the stretch kind, then it can be hard to wind that hose up when you're finished with it. Those are all things that aren't a huge deal, but we've got some upgrades. Let's go through the box and check out everything that comes with those, and then we'll throw them on the air tank. All right, so here is the box. This is all stuff from Preece Precision. This is the setup that we ordered right here. It's this regulator assembly and then this big handle that goes on there. So not only does it look cool, but I think we're gonna get a lot more function out of this and a lot more reliability. Another thing I like about ordering from these guys so far is that it comes with, yeah, a bunch of their advertisements, like look all this cool stuff we have, but on the flip side, it comes with some really good directions and like pictures and all that to help keep you safe when installing this and making sure everything's gonna work right. If you're looking for this one, I bought it on Amazon. Here's the model number for their specific part right here. It's 3250A320 QC. For the handle, this one is OA handle. I'll put a link to these down in the description if you want to check those out. Just look below and click on those. So here's the regulator. Actually looks pretty cool. It's like a gray anodized color, so it actually looks a lot cooler. The coupler spring is pretty dang strong. It just looks like it's way better quality than the other one I had. And there are the gauges. So we've got one gauge for the tank, we've got another gauge for the output PSI, and then this milled out adjustment knob right here. So we're gonna close it all the way before we throw this on there. But one cool thing about this too is you can see that this doesn't line up like directly with the gauge. That way they can be tilted up a little bit, and then also I think that'll help them protect the gauges, plus it gives us a better angle to get our hose into the coupler. This thing looks awesome. This is what the majority of the cost comes from, and I really hope that this is going to solve those issues that we're having. So here's the handle that comes with this kit, and you can see it just got a couple different Allen heads that you're going to use to adjust that, and basically this just clamps on to the top of the tank. So we've got to get our plastic guard off of our tank that we have right now, and then we'll clamp this thing on. This is pretty cool because it's going to protect the gauges that are in there too. We kind of have that right now on our other tank, but the regulator sticks out, so if it ever fell down we could snap that off. All right, so the first thing is to get this plastic guard off. Hopefully I can get these snap ring pliers in there. It's kind of in a weird spot to be able to take this handle off. Probably would have made more sense to take this regulator assembly off first. This regulator that was on there, it has zero seal, just brass against brass mating surface. And then if you look at our new one, it's really hard to see, but there's actually a washer in there that's gonna help with those mating surfaces. The regulator all the way closed, try to get it lined up nice and straight. All right, to get these Allen heads out, you're gonna need a 5/16 Allen. I actually decided to use one of these. This way you can attach it to a little ratchet, and that's actually gonna help because these are on there pretty tight to get them loose, and then we're gonna need to put them on pretty tight. So once you undo those Allens, you can pull this base off. So we need a bolt that is at least an inch longer. Just went to the hardware store, picked up some new bolts. You can see the stock one that came with it is 1.5 inches long, and then the new ones are 3 inches long, so twice as long. Hopefully that's going to be enough to engage. Double checked it by just lining up the threads at the shop. If for whatever reason you don't have it or you're ordering online, this is a 3/8 and the thread pitch is 16. So 3/8, 16, it's the coarse thread one. Make sure you got the right one so you don't mess up the threads in there. And then you got to make sure the socket head is the same size so it can fit in there. So let's get this thing tightened up. Tightened it from the back so it's a little bit easier. Make sure it's nice and straight on there. And you can see there's only really two parts that are sticking out past, and it's just this coupler right here, and then just barely this knob right here. So looks like pretty good protection, sitting nice and flush, feels really sturdy. Give her the old test to see if she holds on or if she crushes my foot. So to pair with our new regulator, we have a new hose. This one is another hard hose. It's not the curly retractable kind. 3/8 inch diameter. This one's 50 feet long, 300 PSI. That's the important part. This one's got the PSI rating. They advertise that this regulator doesn't go above 200. So hopefully if this one does its job, it's not gonna blow this hose or any of the fittings. This hose is new, no fittings on it. We're gonna have to add those on real quick and then we'll test this out. Let's try our new setup out. We've got our hose all ready to go. Gonna make sure both these valves are closed. They are. See, it's a good thing this is angled this way because if it wasn't angled, it'd be like impossible to get this thing in there. Wow, really tight though. I have this little plastic guard on here that I had to take down. I couldn't get it in there. It's pretty much touching the tank on this 20 pounder. I don't know if a smaller tank that would be a little bit easier, but on a tank this size, I think that is basically the max. So if you have this little guard on yours, you'll have to pull that down also. For the gauge, we're using our trusty Rhino USA gauge. Not sponsored by these guys or anything. This isn't a promotion of any kind. It's just an awesome company that I love. I broke one of these one time. Well, actually my last regulator broke one of these one time, and they sent me a new one for free. I like to get everything connected before I start turning the air on. Get this guard up. There we go. Okay, we're all connected up. First we'll open the tank up. There you go. We can see just jumped up to about 750 PSI in the tank. So that's a lot. And that's probably why our last setup blew out. All right, so now for the regulator part, we'll go up to, let's try going up to like 150. Slowly coming on, which is what I want to hear. Unlike that other one where it was just full blast basically. Once you opened up valve on the tank, that other regulator is just going to go as much as it needed to. It's supposed to be around 150, but obviously it was putting out more because it blew up a bunch of hoses. So this one's really easy to control. Let's see if it goes back down. Yeah, this knob works really well so far. Let's see if we can go up to about 150. All right, there's 150. The Rhino gauge says, yeah, 148. So we're pretty close. So let's turn this off. And bleed the rest of the air out of here. Actually, first we'll close the valve on the tank. Wow, that part is awesome. So for the other one, what I had to do is I had to hold the trigger down in this release valve and just get all the air out and then disconnect it, and even then it would still kind of blast out. Now we can control all of that from the regulator, which is a way better setup. You can see the tank pressure is still reading pretty high. All right, so we have this connected again. I'm going to close the tank valve. Pressure's still on. We'll open up all this pressure back through the regulator. Tank valve is now at 0. Close this valve all the way. You can kind of hear that air coming out. And we're at 0. This system so far works way better than the last one. So my only critique that I've got is that on these 20-pound tanks, this is really, really close. Like, really close. It's hard actually to get this out. And I don't know if it's the same way on the 15-pounder, but I'm actually planning on switching to a 15-pounder anyways, just because this tank setup is so big. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm probably just going to run through this whole tank and then we'll figure it out from there. So obviously much happier with this setup. Not only does it look way cooler and guard the regulator and gauges better, it actually works way better too. Originally, the whole point of this was to have a budget DIY air tank setup, something that could be competitive with like a power tank or something along those lines. And originally, like I said, it was $250 or less was the goal to get this set up. Upgrading to this regulator and this handle is definitely an increase in that price, so we're slowly getting out of that budget range. But if you think of it this way, $250 minus about $50, which was the original regulator, coupler, and all that from Gentex. So that's back at $200, and then you add this setup, which is about $150 when I bought it. That puts us at $350, which is still a really great price for a DIY setup like this, especially because you can customize the tank and the boot that's on the bottom and whatever else you want to do. From what I've seen, that's still about half the price of what a power tank would be, unless it was on sale or something. And I don't have anything against power tank. I've never used one. I have buddies that have them. They look like a really solid product, but you know, my kind of mindset on most of this stuff that I do is to get something on a budget, make sure I'm going to like it, and then try to upgrade it from there. Sometimes I do buy expensive stuff. Sometimes I get the nice stuff, but usually I try to go with the more budget-minded kind of stuff because I know a lot of you guys are in the same mindset and have those same budgetary restrictions. So anyways, really great product. Haven't used it on the trail yet, obviously, because we just installed it here, but I'm really excited to have this, and I just have a lot more faith in this system now because you never want to be stuck off-road with like 5 PSI and then try to get on the road, and now all of a sudden you can't air your tires back up. So definitely an awesome upgrade for your setup if you're running something similar. If you want to see the original tank buildup, I'll put a link up here you can check out. If you're looking to get this regulator, handle, this boot down here, a hose, I don't know if I'll be able to find this one, but something very similar to this, look down in the description. I'm pretty good about putting those links down there so you guys can check out the same exact products that I'm using. That way you know it's going to work for you too or in the case of the old regulator, you know, it's not going to work. Really awesome option to have off-road for $350 and get everything aired up. And if you're like me, I've got the Colorado, we've got the Jeep in here, the Samurai's down on the road right there. So, you know, ARB or some kind of other air compressor in your truck is probably like a really sweet, convenient option to have for most of you guys. But because I've got too many vehicles, I basically have to have something mobile like this. So thanks for checking out our video, guys. If you want to see this air tank in action or see any of the vehicles that it's going to be airing up out on the trail, definitely hit that subscribe button. If you want to check us out on Instagram, we're same name, Fortune Off-Road on Instagram. Thanks for checking it out. See you guys next time.